It's been a while since we did a Behr color palette, so that's what today's video is all about, featuring Cracked Pepper. And that's a color we recently talked about. We'll get to it in a little bit, but let me tell you what palette pyramids are all about if you're new here. They're essentially a 6-color palette that we put together, actually me, I'll take all the credit. And it's done in pyramid fashion, starting with our main color up top, which is essentially your go-to default wall color choice. If you don't know what to paint a specific room, just use your main color. That's typically how I think of it. Today's sponsor is us. ThePaintPeople.com is your go-to destination for quality paint and paint supplies. We're more than just a paint store. We are your partner in bringing color to life. Visit our website today and discover a world of colors, quality, and convenience. And as a thank you for supporting us on YouTube, use coupon code JAMES5 for 5% off your order. And the one that I selected for this palette is Dove, which is not necessarily the color you might expect it to be. It's not a beautiful bright, crispy white. This is more of a warm grayish, which I think is a very versatile type of color that can be used in a number of situations. And that's because it combines the neutrality and the just cleanliness of just a nice gray, but also the warmth and the comfort of beige. So either way, whether you lean one way or the other with your decor, a grayish kind of connects the dots. And that's what I think Dove does a great job at doing. It has a 66 LRV, so reflecting 66% of the light that hits it, which is, you know, pretty good. It's 2/3 light enough that it's going to make a space feel nice and airy, but also not too dark. It's in a pretty nice spot lightness wise, I feel. Dove being the main color is probably the most important color in this palette, but it's not necessarily the most exciting. So let's get to some of the others. So after our main color, we move down to our second level of the palette pyramid, which is your support colors. These are going to be some secondary options that you can use as trim or alternative wall color choices. So let's start with that white color for your trim. Nano White would be my pairing for Dove specifically, because of the fact that it is bright, it's crispy, it has just a touch of like this like kiss of taupe. Like there is just like this bit of maybe this stone gray sort of warmth that comes through, but it's extremely subtle. It has an 87 light reflectance value, which means it's going to be very bright, not the brightest out there, but still bright enough to really separate itself from all the other colors in this palette. Great choice as a no-brainer option on your baseboards, your doors frames, woodwork. Could maybe use it as a wall color, but I don't really recommend white all the time because of the maintenance and the upkeep, of course, and the application. It can be hard to cover it properly, but the option's there if you want. I think a better alternative as a secondary wall color would be something like Loft Space, which is a 61 LRV color, so a little bit darker than Dove, and also quite a bit cooler because this one does feel like a more traditional, like stainless steel kind of gray. It has this slight blue cast going through it, so it does feel a little cooler. You have some options with this and Dove specifically. You have the warmer grayish option, you have the slightly deeper, cooler, bluey gray option, a little more pure in its grayness. And I do find that colors that feel this gray tend to feel even cooler in person. Like it's just the way our interior lighting has sort of evolved, moving away from warm incandescent lighting and going towards these cooler fluorescent or LED lights that do have a bit of a cool color cast. You will probably notice that Loft Space will look a little more bluey in person, but you won't know for sure until you test it out. So please test your colors before you actually buy gallons and gallons. Thank you. Okay, so now the fun begins. Here is the finishing color row. These are the accent colors that really set the palette off in a nice way. We already talked about some neutrals that you can use on your walls and your trim, but what if you wanted more richness or more coloration? Well, why don't we start with the color I mentioned off the top, Cracked Pepper. So this is going to be the first finishing color. It is definitely the darkest color in this palette. Spoiler alert, it has an 8 LRV. It only reflects 8% of the light that hits it, making it very dark. And some people might be spooked by that because they're like, oh, I don't want to feel like I'm painting a room and making it into like a small cave. Well, it's actually the opposite. When you paint a room a dark color, because light is being absorbed, in fact, 92% of the light is absorbed, the walls will look like they're sort of receding away, like receding into themselves, being pushed away, sucked into oblivion. So there is some upside to painting a room dark. You don't need to just think of this as an accent wall choice or a furniture color. This is a color you can use wherever you really want that moody, deep sort of feeling. I painted this room over here, very similar color to Cracked Pepper, and it worked out beautifully. It is kind of a chill out zone. We have movie nights over there, so it worked out perfectly. But yeah, don't be spooked by colors like this. I think cracked pepper's awesome, and it's a great dark door color if you want to do that too. Like if you wanted white trim and then dark doors in the middle, this is an awesome choice for that. Number 2, this is kind of a surprising one. It's Mannequin Cream. You may notice that this is a pretty light color, not so much an accent feeling color, but I wanted to give you something that was really bright and warm. It's gonna feel like an accent in the sense that it's so vibrant and lively. It has an 80 LRV, so it is quite bright. This is my alternative to something like Nano White on the walls. Instead of going with a bright white, go with more of an off-white that feels a little more creamy and fun and positive. This is a color choice that doesn't feel grayed out and dusty and maybe muddy in some cases. It feels very pure and clean. And I think this palette really needed it just to give you something on the opposite end of the spectrum compared to cracked pepper, for example. I would love this color in somewhere like a solarium or even a kitchen where you want it to feel nice and just, I think it'll have that effect. I could be wrong, but maybe not. The third finishing color is a little more my style. It's called Environmental. It has a mid-tone 45 LRV green. And it's a green that does have maybe a touch of warmth to it. Like it has a nice sort of slightly sagey quality, but I would say it's a little more deep than your traditional sage green. I think it's a wonderful connecting piece that you can use pretty liberally. Like it's not one that you can just have in one specific room, maybe like Mannequin Cream, which is kind of polarizing. This one is your more plain ice, more traditional accent color that can be used in rooms. So not necessarily just in small doses. You can put this in a living room, a family room, bedrooms, whatever the case may be. Anywhere you want to break free from the neutrals, but still have something that can work in a number of different situations. Environmental is my choice. Here's the palette all together. Please let me know what you think. And if you want your own personal color palette from me, we do offer it as a service, whether you need a 3-color, 6-color, 12-color palette. Link in the description down below if you want to know how all of that works. And we have another video right over here.